Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to start here with our all hazards weather map late in the afternoon here on Thursday. And we have extensive regions across the United States that are under heat advisories or excessive heat warnings, which would be in here and here. Smoke to the north in parts of Iowa and Minnesota has really degraded the air quality. And after last night's storms went through parts of Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, today we're going to watch those storms, or at least this evening, right in through here where we have our severe thunderstorm watches and tornado watch area. In the west, the heat is going to really start to build here along the western side of North America. We've already got heat advisories out. Plus, there are air quality issues across the west as well, given the wildfire smoke. But strong southwestern monsoon keeps the flash flood watches out for this part of the Intermountain West. Now, July has given us a very interesting temperature pattern here across the United States. And in the in-depth video, we kind of discuss why this has been the case, and we compared it to some other time periods in the past. And we also discuss in that video how we expect this particular pattern to possibly go on a bit of a repeat into the month of August, with the exception of probably not being nearly as cool as you see here. So check out that video to take a look. But what I'm talking about possibly repeating itself is this jet stream pattern, where we've had in the upper levels of the atmosphere higher atmospheric pressure and therefore higher heights, forcing the jet stream to do this quite a bit. And that particular pattern has favored drier conditions and warmer conditions extending in the west into the Canadian prairie, while we've had some cooler weather here. So while I'm not expecting August to look like this, what I do expect to see here is that this jet stream pattern likely continues. So what does that mean for soil moisture? Well, an interesting thing we discussed in the in-depth video is that I've spent a lot of time here in the Western Corn Belt. In fact, right now when I'm recording, I'm in Omaha. And as we look at some of the things that are going on in the Western Corn Belt, the crop, as I've driven across this area, doesn't look as stressed as I thought, given the low soil moisture values. And a lot of the farmers I've been talking to in this area have said they've had a lot of nights where maybe they've missed the precipitation, but we've had quite a bit of dew, and that's really helped carry things along. And with the cooler weather coming into this area, we could see better conditions moving forward. Do take note of the drier weather that's been from Kentucky through northern Virginia back to Pennsylvania and Ohio in this area as well, while much of the Cotton Belt has seen quite a lot of precipitation. We can even look at that a different way. This would be the precipitation ranks from the beginning of July through the 28th. And you start to notice some places in the Central Plains in Kansas and Nebraska that have been dry, and then much of the upper Midwest was dry until these recent storms came through this area. Pacific Northwest, extremely hot and dry as well throughout this month. But those storms that came through yesterday, just look at the last 72 hours of precip. Came right out of this part of Minnesota, getting up in Ontario, and then they really poured through Wisconsin, and that left a frontal boundary sitting right in through here today that we're going to watch those severe storms pick up in the overnight hours. Scattered convection from the mid-Atlantic through the south, and there's our stronger southwestern monsoon. Now, some of the rain that came right in through this area, really just brought precip into some extremely dry places that had not seen much rainfall at all lately. But unfortunately, with some of the storms, they brought in some nasty weather too. Just looking back at the hail from these storms, that's what's shown here, maximum estimated hail size. You can see the streaks through this region. And then some of the scattered convection down here, putting down in some places pea-size hail, in other places a little bit larger there. But it was those wind reports in through this area that did some damage last night. And we're kind of waiting to see what kind of damage that looked like. Now, on radar, this is what the storms look like. Okay, you see them coming through southern Wisconsin. And today that boundary is lingering right in through this area, and the storms fired up again right here in the afternoon heat. And we're going to see these storms continue in the overnight hours over here toward parts of New England. So right in through this area is where we're going to watch very carefully for those storms to continue. And the National Weather Service, again, has this area out for severe thunderstorm watches and tornado watch as well. But take a look at the satellite imagery behind these storms as they're forming in this area. A lot of smoke. This is all from the western wildfires in parts of British Columbia and Alberta, coming over the top and just invading this particular area. And there's a lot of smoke in the sky down here in the south as well. The really neat satellite image, though, is I just kind of rock back and forth here at the end of the day before the sun's about to set. And you can see just the southwest monsoon cranking. Best monsoonal flow I've seen in a very long time. But that smoke, well, this is the forecast as we work our way through the 29th into the 30th. And then getting out there into the 31st. And a lot of the flow of this smoke is tracing out what the jet stream's doing, and I want to talk to you about that. Because as we work our way through the next 10 days, we're going to lose a lot of the continuity in the jet stream. And this is what it's going to look like by the time we get to the 8th of August. And I'm most concerned about this feature here, this trough, this cutoff low, and what happens downstream of it right there. Now let's get back and show you how we got here. Ready? So throughout Thursday night into Friday, we still have our ridge in place. But the jet stream has already cut off this low. See how the northern branch runs up like this? And the effect of that is to produce a very highly amplified flow pattern by Sunday. Big trough here, ridge right downstream of it running up the spine of the Rocky Mountains, but it's very narrow. And then a broader trough extending from the Hudson Bay through the eastern half of the United States. And as we just progress forward into next week, that pattern sticks around. I mean, you can see it here through next Wednesday. And what ends up happening by the time we get out to next Thursday and Friday is we end up getting a high over a low block coming out of Alaska into the Gulf of Alaska. Jet stream runs over the top of it, and the flow just becomes a bit of a mess. It's pretty weak across much of North America, and the models are struggling with week 2 precipitation because of that. But if that stays put, well, you already saw this at the beginning of this animation, that continues to produce this downstream trough feature that we're seeing right now. So taking all that, let's just put all this into one map and look at the next week's worth of precipitation first, then we'll look at that week 2. What we've got going on here is the front's already cleared this area out, and we're watching those storms in through here. Low pressure's curling up into New England, into this area, and then a second low comes up here and curls into the Hudson Bay. The net effect is to leave a frontal boundary right in through this area on which we're going to see storms Friday into Saturday into this area and some rainfall. And then that front slides farther to the south, and that's why we see from the lower Mississippi River Valley over to North Carolina chances of getting 3/4 of an inch to well over an inch and a half of rain. In the west, it's the monsoon just cranked in this area. But there are pockets that are going to be drier over the next 7 days in through here and in through here as well. And that's an important piece to kind of point out. Let's look at it another way. This would be the European model. So you just saw the WPC. This is the European model. And this is the next 7 days of precipitation anomalies. And you see a lot of similarities in what we just saw there. But I like to do multi-model comparisons. So let's do this quickly. This is the European and this is the GFS. And overall, while there is agreement in the pattern, where the models begin to deviate is with the south and southeastern precipitation in through here, where the European leaves the boundary and a lot of moisture funneling into it and a lot of daily scattered convection or storms. The GFS has struggled with this all year, and you just don't see it. It's not resolved well. But let's go back. This will be a critical area to bring rainfall through. We're going to watch that carefully. And some of those drier pockets in through here are going to miss out. But the cooler weather that comes in behind this is at least going to alleviate some of the stress in this part of the country while the heat runs up the west coast of North America. Now, real quick, I'm going to talk to you about the tropics. We don't have anything going on right now, so the National Hurricane Center isn't watching anything over the next 5 days. And there's a lot of dust coming off of the Sahara, pulling right on top of where that active convection usually leaves the west coast of Africa. So that's difficult for those storms to get going. But we do expect in the month of August for more favorable conditions in this area for tropical convection. This is a plot of what we call velocity potential. And where you see the cooler shading, that's just where it's more easy to get air to rise. So I'm expecting the main development region to really get going. And one of the reasons why is we have relatively low wind shear in this area, and low wind shear is conducive to tropical cyclone development. And the ocean temperatures are plenty warm to do it as well. So we're going to watch that very carefully as we get into the month of August. But this is where the models really fall flat on their faces. The GFS, while it has the trough in place and the jet stream flow coming around like this, it loses any sense of discernible flow across much of North America. And it keeps going back and forth with what this day 10 through day 15 pattern is going to look like. So what it does with this pattern, keeping the Gulf open, is it keeps this area in through here seeing a lot of storms that kind of come over the ridge and just flatly move across the United States. So you see this open area that we expect to see scattered convection. Now the European model, I feel as though it's got a better handle on the pattern, and over the last 6 weeks, it's had a 5% better skill score as well. So there's the same trough, and the flow comes around this one just here off the coast. But this is the trough that's much more defined in the European model. So the flow comes over and down like that. And we know what that means in summer. And that's why I think that this particular precipitation pattern is likely the more valid or more correct getting into week 2. And there's a lot of green on this because we have not shut down Gulf of Mexico moisture transport. But right in through here, it feels as though if you're west of that, there's going to be a pretty hard boundary where we do go over to drier during that time period. So take note of this. Pause and take a closer look at that week 2 precip pattern. Now, we've got through the next couple of weeks in precip. What about temperatures? I'll take a look at this. This is today's high temperatures, and what you're going to notice is this. Going into tomorrow, the heat pushes farther south, but look at the cooler air kind of invade this section of the country while the heat really pushes into the Columbia Basin. Saturday, the heat keeps going farther south, and by Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, now it's really well established. We could get a brief shot at some upper 80s, lower 90s back in the northern plains, but I think most of this heat's going to stay in western Canada as we get into next week. And all the way out to next, gosh, look at this. This is next Wednesday. It's still in place here. Now, the latest European model data that just came out suggests that that sharp ridge that develops along the west coast of North America allows for a lot of downstream cooler air in place. And you can see it really well established here, where temperatures could be anywhere between 3 and upwards of 8 or 9 degrees cooler than normal during that time period. Again, this gets us out into the beginning of August. Beyond that, the models do have a different scenario for temperatures getting into the end of the first week of August, with the GFS and the weaker, more open flow bringing in more warmth than the European is doing at this point. But what I'll finish with is what that long-range European suggests. So I usually wait until I get the new ECMWF weeklies in before I record, and this is what they're showing. Now, I go into more detail about this in the extended video, but in a nutshell, open Gulf moisture, ridging and flatter flow means a lot of just daily convective activity here. When I say ridging, I'm talking about in the west, and the flatter flow in the east. And this is what we end up getting. The models have to take that moisture and do something with it. The most defining characteristic of this season has been the high over here, pumping that moisture in to much of the eastern 2/3 of the United States. What are those temperatures going to do? Well, the models are projecting, because the jet stream is pretty far to the north, that it's going to be mild compared to normal. And in the longer range video, we give a quick discussion about La Nina, and we even look out again there at that September, October, November timeframe. But we'll cut this one off here, and I'll talk to you again on Monday. Thank you.